Salvete, ladies. Today's lesson is on Chapter 12 of Wheelock's Latin, which is your introduction to the perfect system. More specifically, today we're going to do the perfect active system. We're not going to do passives quite yet. And we're going to do it for all of the conjugations. Now, what do I mean by perfect system? The perfect system refers to three tenses: the perfect tense, the pluperfect tense, and the future perfect tense. Okay? What does perfect mean? Perfect means completed. Okay, so these are tenses that show us completed action, as opposed to, for example, the imperfect, which is incomplete past action. Okay, the perfect and the pluperfect are completed past action, and the future perfect is a completed action that is going to happen in the future, which I know sounds a little bit weird. And the truth is that the future perfect is not an extremely common tense in English or in Latin for that matter, but you still need to learn it. The perfect system is called the perfect system. So the reason why these three tenses are called the perfect system is because you put the endings for those tenses on a perfect stem. Today we're going to learn the perfect active stem. So you're going to learn to put the perfect active, pluperfect active, and future perfect active endings on the perfect active stem. Pretty straightforward. Let me explain how each of these tenses translate. I'm going to use the verb to love as my example, and I'm going to just put them in the first person singular. So the perfect tense, which tells you completed past action, translates either as I loved, so a simple past, I have loved, or I did love, which I have to say very often is used for questions. Okay. The pluperfect tense translates as I had loved, and that's because the pluperfect, sort of on a past timeline, falls farther in the past than the perfect. The future perfect translates I will have loved. Okay. So, in order to form the perfect active tenses, right, the perfect active system, you need to put the endings on the perfect active stem. So, first things first, how do you get the perfect active stem? You get the perfect active stem by removing the I from the third principal part. Okay? Once you have done that, you can put your endings on there, and here is the best news. All conjugations form their perfects in the exact same way. So the perfect system is completely regular. Huzzah! This is so exciting because, as you know, the present system can be a little bit more complicated than that. Not so for the perfect. Okay, so now that you know how to get the perfect active stem, I need to tell you what the endings are for the perfect tenses, and then it's as easy as putting those endings onto the stem, and then you can conjugate the perfect active, pluperfect active, and future perfect active indicative. For all of these, I already have on here that you need your perfect active stem. That is pretty necessary. So perfect, the endings are E, isti, it, imis, istis, arunt. Okay. Pluperfect active endings are aram, aras, arat, aramis, aratus, arant. So the imperfect of the verb to be. And the future, oops, hold on, I gotta go back. There we go. Is very similar to the future of the verb to be, aro, aris, arit, arimis, aritis, but the third person plural future perfect active indicative is arint, so that it's not confused with the third person plural perfect active indicative. Okay. So let's take a look at our first paradigm verb. I'm going to use manio, manere, mansi, mansorum, which means to remain. And I'm going to need, for my perfect active stem, the third principal part, and we're going to remove the I so that our perfect active stem is mans, M-A-N-S. Now, it is onto that stem, mans, that I'm going to add my perfect endings, my pluperfect endings, and my future perfect passive active endings, excuse me. So mansi, mansisti, mansit, mansemus, mansistus, manserunt. And again, I remained, you remained, he, she, or it remained. You could also translate this, I have remained, you have remained, she has remained. Or you could translate it, I did remain, you did remain, she did remain. Okay. The pluperfect, we add those pluperfect endings onto the third principal part. So Monsaram, Montserrat, 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 Monseramus, Monseratus, Monserrant. And this translates, I had remained, you had remained, she had remained, etc. Future perfect, we add the future perfect active endings to mons. So it's Monsero, Monseris, Monserit, Monserimus, Monseritus, Monserrent. And this is going to translate, I will have remained, you will have remained, he, she, or it will have remained. Now, I have examples from a few other verbs in here because I just want you to see that it is completely regular. You get your third principal part, you remove the I, and then you're left with your perfect active stem onto which you add the endings. The process works the same way for all the verbs, okay? So our perfect active stem here is going to be cape, okay? So cape. And then we're going to add our endings. So kp, capisti, capit, capimus, capistis, caperun, caperam, caperas, caperat, caperamus, caperatus, caperant, and capero, caperis, caperit, caperimus, caperitus, caperent. One last verb, again, just to put a fine point on it, enwenio, enwenere, enweni, enwentum. We take our third principal part, remove the I, and so our perfect active stem is enwane with the macron. Okay, so enweni, enwenisti, enwenit, enwenimus, enwenistus, enwenerunt, enwenaram, enwenaras, enwenerant, enweneramus, enweneratus, enwenerant, and enwenero, enweneris, enwenerit, enwenerimus, enweneritus, ewenerent. Okay. There's one little thing that I want to end this lesson on, and it's the only little hiccup that the perfect can possibly give you, because the perfect is so wonderfully straightforward that, you know, for the most part, it's a gift. There are certain verbs, and you have to be careful about this, okay? Certain third IO and fourth conjugation verbs where the only difference between a present form and a perfect form is a macron, okay? There are only a few verbs that work like this, but there are some notable ones that we've already done, including fugio, wenio, and enwenio, okay? So for example, look at these, well, I've explicated a couple of them. Look at the third person singular present active indicative of fugio. It's fugit, right? Well, the third person singular perfect active indicative of fugio is fugit. So the only difference being that macron, okay? And it's because the four principal parts are, or at least the three that we care about, is fugio, fugere, fugi, okay, with that long U, okay? So if you don't pay attention to this macron, you won't know whether it should be fugit, he flees, or fugit, he fled, okay? The same is true of wenio. So weni, which is the second person singular, present active imperative, come, versus waney, which is the first person singular perfect active indicative, I came, right? You can see that's true of when it versus wane it, right? She comes versus she came. In when it versus in wane it, she finds as opposed to she found. And in whenny versus in waney. So find versus I found. Okay, so you need to be careful about these particular forms and note the macrons in the stems. All right, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in class. Come with any questions. See you then.